I always thought of myself as a practical person, not superstitious, not dreamy, and definitely not easily scared by things like a strange face outside the window. But that changed one rainy night when I saw him. The apartment I live in is on the third floor, not too high, but high enough that anyone wanting to look into my bedroom window would have to climb up with a ladder or something even more unusual. That's why, when I saw a face imprinted through the misted glass, I froze. At first, I thought I was dreaming. The rain was tapping loudly on the roof and windows. The street lights reflecting through the water streaks created shimmering halos. I had just turned off the lights, leaving only the glow of the TV. I was about to get up and go to bed when a soft click came from the window, like metal scraping against glass. I turned to look and saw it. A face, pale, expressionless, eyes wide open, unmoving, not looking around, but staring directly at me. Panicking, I turned the light on. In that instant, the face vanished. No sound, no footprints, no sign of anyone climbing. I took slow steps towards the window, my heart pounding so loudly that I could hear every beat. I pulled the curtains aside. No one was there. On the ground below, no ladder, no person, just the thick black rain, like a curtain obscuring reality. I tried to reassure myself. Maybe it was a reflection from the TV, or maybe I was just tired, or maybe I was just obsessing over it. But that night, I didn't sleep. At 3:17 a.m., I heard a crack, crack, like the sound of an old film camera snapping a photo. I sat up. No flash, no other sound. I must have imagined that sound. I had to have imagined it, right? I stayed awake until the morning light filtered through the window. When I walked into the kitchen, I froze. Under the front door, a black envelope was halfway pushed inside. I opened it. Inside was a photo. Me, sleeping. The curtains still not drawn. The angle from my bedroom window. Taken. Last night. I saw my face in the photo, peaceful like any other person when they sleep. But what made me want to vomit wasn't myself. It was what was outside the window frame in the picture. A shadow. A face. Standing right outside the window. Looking in. I don't know which part of this sent a chill down my spine more, the fact that someone had actually stood outside my third-floor window in the rain to take a picture of me, or that I had no idea it was happening the whole time. I should call the police. That was my first thought when I saw the second photo, which was sent just 3 days after the first one. But I didn't call. I'm not sure why. Partly because I was afraid no kitchen table when I got home from work. I live alone. The apartment has a code lock, and no one knows the code except me and the building manager. I trembled as I opened it. Inside was not just one photo, but 3. The first, I'm sitting at the dining table, eating breakfast. The angle of the shot, from behind me. The second, I'm brushing my teeth in the bathroom, head slightly down, my empty gaze reflected in the mirror. The photo was taken from directly in front of the door, meaning someone was standing right outside the bathroom door. And the last photo made me gasp. Me, standing, looking at a photo. The first photo. The angle was from the living room, through the bookshelf. The person who took the photo was standing very close, too close. At that moment, I felt the floor beneath my feet sinking. The room was ice cold, even though the outside temperature was damp and muggy. I checked the entire apartment, every door, every corner, every small crack. I found nothing except one detail that made my skin crawl. A tiny camera attached under the TV stand, something I'd never noticed before. I took it out. No logo, no brand, nothing. I placed it on the table and stepped back. One strange thing. There was no dust. It was as if someone had just attached it the night before. This time, I called the police. They came, checked the camera, took photos of the scene. I told them about the photos, but with no signs of forced entry, no fingerprints, no hallway cameras capturing anything. They left with a sympathetic look, as if saying, "She's probably just stressed." They didn't take the photos with them. "No evidence of criminal activity," one of them said. "No break-in, and the photos don't involve any violence." I scoffed as they left. No violence. They must have never been stalked like prey in their own den. That night, I gathered the courage to draw the curtains tightly across every window and keep the lights on all night. I didn't sleep. Around 2 a.m., my phone vibrated. No notification, no message, just a photo that had appeared in my photo folder. I opened it. A photo of me, looking directly into the camera. This moment, in the apartment, when I was curled up on the sofa, my heart raced. I looked around, trying to find where the camera was. I saw nothing. I turned off all the lights, turned off my phone, pushed all the chairs anymore. Only faint fingerprints on the glass, long and wet. The next morning, I checked my phone. A new photo had been added at 3:03 a.m. I, lying on the ground, eyes wide open, the bright light from the window flashing in. I didn't take it, and I knew he was still there. I started to wonder, am I going crazy? I installed 3 new locks on the front door. I bought thick black curtains for all the windows. I taped over the laptop camera, covering the phone lens as well. I began sleeping during the day and staying awake at night. My entire routine now revolved around one thing: escaping that gaze, that face. But where can I hide when the person knows every corner of my apartment better than I do? I started noticing strange things. Small objects were shifted. The salt jar moved to the left. The TV remote was placed upside down. One night, I woke up to find the kitchen cabinet wide open, even though I was sure I had locked it. I began taking photos of everything, every night. The dining table, the bookshelf, the bathroom, then comparing them the next morning. And then, one night, I took a photo of the dining table with the glass of water I had left there. The next morning, the glass was still there, but there was a lip print on it, not mine. I began hearing footsteps at night, very light, like someone was walking on tiptoe, but enough for me to hear, like the beat of a heart in the silence. Once, I ran out to check in the middle of the night, carrying a kitchen knife. There was no one, but the bedroom window, still locked, had a faint breath mark on the glass, like someone had just pressed their face against it only seconds ago. I felt like I was being swallowed by something invisible, a silent darkness following every move I made. I installed more security cameras in the house, connected to my phone. Every time I closed my eyes, I dreamt I woke up and saw him sitting at the foot of my bed, taking photos. When I opened my eyes, no one was there. But the camera caught something terrifying. The kitchen light flickering on and off at 3:16 a.m. Then turning back on. There was no one in the house. I sent the video to the police. They said it might be an electrical fault. I sent the photo with the fingerprint on the glass. They said it could be my own hand. My hair was tangled, my arm across my body, the angle of the shot. From inside the room, Julia covered her mouth, nearly vomiting. I shakily checked the windows. Locked. The front door? Locked. We called security. No cameras recorded anything unusual. That night, I went home. I don't know why. I think a part of me understood. I couldn't escape. If he could follow me to another place, the apartment or not, it didn't matter anymore. But when I walked into my apartment, I knew everything had spiraled out of control. The air in the room was heavy, musty. Something was different. Then I heard a small noise coming from the closet. I walked over, opened the door. No one. But on the floor, an old roll of film lay among the clothes. I took it to a nearby photo shop, asking for it to be developed quickly. When they sent the photos back, I sat in a cafe and opened the envelope. I froze. Each photo was of a different woman, in different apartments, always showing them sleeping, eating, or crying. But in the last photo, there was someone I recognized. Julia. The photo was taken from outside her window, yesterday. Under the photo, a handwritten message in red ink. You brought her into this. Now she's part of it too. I clenched the photo, my palms slick with sweat. The glass window of the cafe reflected behind me. A shadow standing across the street. Not moving, not taking its eyes off me. I moved out of the apartment that night, not because I felt safer somewhere else, but because I couldn't bear the feeling that he was still in there. Once I read about a case involving a man who lived in the ceiling of a woman's apartment for 3 months, eating her food, watching her shower and sleep, and eventually killing her in her own bathtub. I always thought that was a fabricated story. But now, I'm not so sure. I rented a small room in a cheap hotel near downtown. No windows, no balcony, no built-in closets. I slept with a dagger in hand. But the nightmare still clung to me, dreams with the constant sound of camera clicks, expressionless faces, and eyes watching me through every wall. I started investigating about the building I lived in, about my apartment. After a week of frantic searching through old forums and articles that had been taken down, I found a piece of information that made my blood run cold. In 2008, a woman named Marissa Clark, 26 years old, who lived in apartment 305, my apartment, disappeared mysteriously. No trace, no evidence of intrusion, no witnesses. The police eventually concluded she left in a mentally unstable state. I looked at me and immediately asked, "You're the one who rented that apartment, right? Apartment 305? I nodded. He shook his head, sighed. I know this didn't end with Marissa. There were at least 2 other girls after her, one in 2013, another in 2017. All disappeared. The police didn't find anything. They called it coincidence. I don't. I asked him what he thought happened. "I think someone has been living inside that building, not renting rooms, but in the walls, in the ceiling, in the ventilation system. He doesn't want to kill, not right away. He builds his collection first. Photos, habits, fears." I left the nursing home in a daze. When I returned to the hotel, I found something waiting for me on the bed. A new photo. It was of me, standing in front of Walter's door, today. No one knew I had gone there. I hadn't told anyone. I went back to the apartment that night. I didn't call the police. I didn't think they would do anything. And deep down, I needed to know. I needed to face it. I entered the apartment in total silence. No lights on. I used a small flashlight, holding a knife in the other hand. The apartment felt quiet, too quiet. I traced the ceiling, noticing for the first time the small gaps between the wooden slats. Some areas had marks of being pried open, very slight, like someone had pried them open and carefully closed them back. In the closet, I discovered a small dent behind the wallpaper. When I peeled it back, a small hole appeared, just big enough for a person to crawl through. It led to the ventilation system, and further, into the space between the apartments. My heart pounded like a drum. I slipped the flashlight through, and then I saw it. A small room, hastily constructed with wood and plaster. Inside was a torn bed, dozens of photos covering the walls, and cameras everywhere. Photos of me sleeping, photos of me crying, photos of me eating, photos of me staring directly at the camera. But I never knew. Under the bed, a box. I opened it. Hair. Bunches of hair tied together, probably from previous victims. A small notebook written in red ink. Just looking isn't enough. You have to understand them. Knife. Eyes glued to the phone screen he had left. The image was still live. The scene of the room, the view from behind me. But when I turned around, there was no one. Only the wind blowing, the curtains fluttering, and the window wide open like an invitation. I slowly closed it and locked it tight. The lights went out. The entire apartment was plunged into darkness, as if someone had just flipped the main switch. In that moment, I heard the faint sound of footsteps. No rush, no attempt to hide. They were quiet, steady, as if someone had been walking in this darkness their whole life. I turned on the flashlight, aiming the beam towards the bedroom. The door slowly creaked open. No sound from the hinges, no squeak, just movement, smooth to the point of being suspicious, as if it knew I was watching. I shone the light inside. It was empty. I stepped in, very slowly. The flashlight swept over the walls, the corner of the room, under the bed. Nothing. But when the light moved up to the ceiling, a face appeared. Him. He was pressed against the ceiling like a giant spider, his hands gripping the light fixture, his body twisted, bones protruding as if there was no skin. He lunged down. I screamed, throwing myself towards the door as the flashlight fell to the floor. The room went pitch black again. I could feel his breath on my neck. I ran into the hallway, slammed into the wall, then crawled toward the kitchen. I turned back. Nothing. No footsteps, no breathing, just a new photo, lying on the floor, as if someone had just dropped it. I bent down to pick it up. It was me, in this position, sitting on the kitchen floor, holding the knife. It had just been taken, right in front of me. I screamed in despair. Outside, the thunder roared, the lights flickered on and off. In that brief moment of light, I saw a figure glide past the window. The lights went out. He vanished. I crawled towards the front door, trying to escape. But when I twisted the doorknob, it was locked from the outside. He wanted me to stay. The apartment was no longer a home. It was a cage, and I was the prey. I ran into the bedroom, slammed the door shut, and pushed the dresser against it. I breathed heavily, my heart pounding as if it would explode. I pressed my ear to the door. Silence. Then, the sound of a camera. Click. I spun around. On the wall, hundreds of photos fell from the ceiling. They were no longer attached, as if he knew it was time for me to see it all. Photos of each victim. Marissa, Julia, people I didn't know. In every photo, there was one common feature. A face behind the window. The face, just like mine. I was stunned. I looked back at the last photo he left in the room, the one of me sitting on the kitchen floor, and I saw the angle wasn't from him. It was from the mirror. I staggered, looking into the bedroom mirror. It reflected him. I, in a twisted, gaunt version with lifeless eyes, a mouth twisted into a familiar smile. Then I heard the faint scratching behind me. I turned around, and this time he was really there, no longer hiding, no longer concealing. He was me. Not a replica, but the version I would become if I lived alone in the darkness, swallowed by obsession, severed from the world. I realized he wasn't a stranger. He was the embodiment of loneliness, of madness. He was me, after losing everything. I lunged at him, screamed, stabbing the knife toward him. Blood splattered. The scream echoed through the room. Then, everything went dark. I woke up in the hospital, handcuffed to the bed. The police said I had broken into my old apartment, destroyed property, and attacked an innocent middle-aged neighbor. They didn't find any photos, no hidden cameras, no secret room. I told them to look for the phone, but it was gone. I told them to check the ventilation system. Nothing unusual. I told them there was something, someone, turning me into part of his collection. They diagnosed me with paranoia, severe anxiety disorder with the potential for self-harm. I stayed there for 3 weeks. Then I was released. The first night back in the apartment, I drew the curtains tightly. I cut all connections to the outside world. And then, under the door, a black envelope. I opened it. It was me, lying in the hospital, my eyes wide open, staring up at the surveillance camera. In the corner of the photo, a shadow reflected through the glass. Him. I burned that photo. As soon as I opened the envelope and saw myself lying in the hospital, I threw it into the sink, lit it on fire, and let the water wash the ashes down the drain. But nothing truly disappeared. Not in this world, not in my story. I moved, left the city, cut all contact. No social media, no smartphones, no fixed address. I chose to live in a quiet rural area, renting a small wooden house in the forest. No neighbors, no one passing by, no windows looking out onto the street. I wasn't Sarah anymore. I changed my name, fake documents, everything to escape him, if he still existed. At first, the silence drove me insane. Every small sound, a twig falling, the roof creaking, the wind whistling through the door, made my hair stand on end. I slept with a knife under my pillow, my eyes always facing the door. Gradually, I learned how to live again, breathe again, believe I had escaped, that I had won. But then, the dreams came back. I dreamt I was walking down endless hallways. On the walls were old photos. Me, Julia, Marissa, and others I had never met, drawn back. I was sure I had pulled them shut before I went to sleep. I locked the door tightly. There was no one else. But now, every pane of glass was bare, exposing the interior of the house to the lurking darkness outside. I silently pulled each curtain closed, trying not to make a sound. Every time I drew the curtains, I feared I would see him standing outside, his face pressed against the glass like that first night when everything started. But I saw nothing, just one photo stuck to the last window pane. It was me, standing in the middle of the living room, wearing the exact same pajamas I had on tonight. My eyes in the photo seemed to be looking directly at me. The photo had writing on it. The handwriting was messy with bold red ink. You left the window open. You left the window open. I trembled, looking around. The window? This house didn't have a ground floor window large enough for anyone to climb through. I turned back to the bedroom, and I realized the bathroom window was slightly open. I never used it. I had forgotten it existed. I walked over. On the ledge, a small, compact camera. No strap. No logo. I opened it. Inside, there was no memory card. But the screen displayed only one photo. It was me, standing in front of the bathroom window, looking into the lens, right at this moment. I threw the camera to the floor, smashing it. But the camera shutter sound still echoed, not from the camera, but from somewhere inside the house. I ran to the living room, gasping for breath. And then I saw all the old photos spread across the floor. All the photos I had seen, received, tried to burn. They were all back. They were arranged in a line, from the window to the sofa, and ending at a mirror placed in the middle of the room. I had never placed it there. I walked over, looked into the mirror. He stood behind me. No shadow, no sound, just presence. I spun around. There was no one, but the photo in the mirror was still there. I saw myself and him still standing there. I reached out to touch the glass. The image didn't change. It wasn't a reflection anymore. It was a snapshot. In his hands, a camera.